Hey guys, it's Alex. I've been gone for so long. It's been like 8 months. So I wanted to film a quick wrap up of the books I've read since then. Not all of them, obviously, but like some of the highs and lows and the ones that stood out to me. I don't have most of these books anymore because I returned them to the library. But I do have a couple, and I just wanted to talk about them in general and sort of what I've been up to and what I plan to continue doing with this channel, hopefully. The first book I wanted to talk about is The Unseen World by Liz Moore. It's set in the 1980s about a girl and her father who works at a university developing an artificial intelligence. He's diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and the book turns into a sort of deep character study of the daughter as she tries to uncover the mystery of who he is and who she is because of that, and it really delves deep into their relationship, and I gave it 5 stars. It was such a heartbreaking and sad book. It's the only book I've given 5 stars in the past 8 months, and it was just so amazing. It surprised me because I almost didn't pick it up. It's computer science and the virtual reality artificial intelligence plays a large role in it, and I'm not a sciencey person or a science fiction person, but it only delves a very little bit into science fiction. It's mostly a character-driven story about a daughter and her father and their relationship, and it was so stunningly beautiful. I adored it. It had me absolutely bawling at some points, and I would highly, highly recommend this book. The second book is a bit in a different direction. It is The Pleasures of Men by Kate Williams. I gave this book 1 star. It's also a historical fiction book set in the 1800s in England while a serial killer is on the loose, and this girl, I don't know if you could say she's really investigating it, but she's thinking about it a lot. I don't know really how to describe this because there wasn't much plot there. She's sort of interested in the serial killer without actively investigating it, and she has a dark past about her brother and her parents, and she lives with her uncle, and there's a lot of sketch things going on. And I gave this 1 star. I almost gave it 2 stars. I was writing the Goodreads review and it had 2 stars up, and I realized I could not think of one good thing to say about this book. Usually I reserve 1 star ratings for the books that I absolutely hate, but this was not a book I hate. This just lacked anything good at all. It was just, I can honestly say nothing positive about this. I was a little bit shocked by how bad it was. I also read The Book of You by Claire Kendall. It's about a woman who has a stalker, and she's picked to be on the jury at a trial of a young woman who was kidnapped and raped. And the book sort of follows her as the stalking increases at a dramatic rate, and the trial sort of dovetails with how she's feeling and how the woman in the trial is treated so poorly, and she internalizes those feelings as that's what she would experience if she came forward. I thought this book was so terrifying. I gave it 4 stars. It was the kind of book that made me afraid to go outside for about a week. I was like, oh no, someone is going to be following me. And I didn't want to put it down because I was too scared to put it down. Because when I finish a book, it's okay, the killer, the stalker, whatever the bad person in the book is, you finish it, they're put away and finished. But if you don't finish it, they're just out there in the world waiting to get you. And it terrified me. It started out so small with such innocuous things oh, this man, I mean, not innocuous, but things that aren't necessarily life-threatening. He's not trying to kill her, he's not trying to rape her, he's not trying to beat her. He just shows up, he gives her gifts, he walks her to work, he does all these small things that would be sweet if it was a wanted boyfriend. But when it's been months and it's a man you don't want there, it's so terrifying. And the way the story was crafted and her feelings felt so real to me, which made it all the more terrifying. I didn't like the ending as much just because the book had been built so scary already that the ending was a little bit less scary than the rest of it with like the action and everything. So it was a little bit of a letdown, but overall I gave this book 4 stars and it was amazing. Another book I read was All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. I mentioned this in the haul I just posted a few days ago that I filmed back in December, but this book is about a girl whose friend disappeared when they were in high school together, and then she proceeded to leave town, and now she's come back because her father is ill. I was really excited to read this because it sounded so good, and the plot sounded... I love the cliche of, like, something bad happened as a teenager, and now 10 years later they have to come back. Like, that's just... I love that plot. That plot's so much fun to me. I only gave this 2 stars, and it was really disappointing. I did really like the story and the characters, and that was all good, but the way it was told was in reverse order by days, so it started at the beginning of, like, day 10, and tell you that whole day in chronological order, and then go backwards to day 9, and start at the beginning of that day, and tell you all of that in chronological order. And my brain does not work that way. I'm very linear. I can't think like that. I had no concept of when things were happening in the order of the story, and it was so confusing. And if you like that, or you think that's a really interesting idea, you might enjoy this book a lot more than me, but I couldn't handle it. I also read Sister by Rosamund Lupton, which is another psychological thriller. It's about a girl whose sister has disappeared, and she returns home to England. She's been living in America. She returns home to England to kind of find her sister and find out what happened. And then when her sister's body is found, she's trying to decide whether she thinks it's suicide or murder. I was not sold on this book. It's told in the future, like after all these events happen. She's talking to a policeman about like everything in order with like some inserts from the policeman, and there's a lot of telling and not a lot of showing, and I was not sold on that. I didn't like that. I thought it was not a good way to tell a story, and I was annoyed and disappointed. And then I reached about 90% through the book, and there was a twist ending. And normally with twist endings that change the entire book and like make you rethink everything in your entire life, they're annoying. It feels like a lazy way to end a book. For whatever reason, this ending really hit me hard, and I had to sit there for a few minutes after I read it and just like rethink everything I'd read. Like, it meant something completely different, and that ending took this book from a 2-star read to a 4-star read, and it was just amazing. I'd love to reread this book at some point, knowing what's going to happen in the end, and just like seeing all the little details she dropped in hinting at that. The last book I want to talk about is Fast Girl by Susie Favor Hamilton. It's a memoir of Susie Favor Hamilton's life. She was an Olympic runner. It deals a lot with her bipolar disorder and the way that impacted her whole life, and the scandal of when she was discovered to be acting as an escort in Las Vegas, even though she was supposed to be like the all-American girl. And I gave this book 4 stars. It's not the best written book, but it is a very interesting story. She's very upfront and honest with everything that happened and all her flaws and all the mistakes she's made. And she doesn't excuse them. Like, she justifies them. She's like, this is the reason why I did this. It doesn't make it right, but this is the reason behind it. Like, she explains her actions without excusing them. And she's very upfront. She's very just, like, straightforward. And it was really impressive to me that she did that, because I couldn't do something like that. It was a really touching book. And it meant a lot to me to read something like that from someone who was such a public figure and then sort of had that typical like fall from grace and was dealing with a lot of things. I just thought it was wonderful, and I really wanted to read more from her, and just like her story was something that I really connected with. In addition to the books I read, there were also a couple of authors I wanted to talk about that I read a bunch of their books and wanted to sort of like give an overview of what I thought of them as a whole. The first was Tawny Odell. She's most famous for writing Backroads, which was an Oprah pick, and that was why I picked it up. And at the same time, I saw a bunch of her books on the shelf, so I was like, I'll just pick up 5 of them and read them all, having no idea who this woman is or what her writing is like. Because they were sort of like half thriller, half literary. They were interesting, they sounded interesting, and I read them, and there was a lot of abuse, there was a lot of rape, there was a lot of incest, and the books were just like so miserable, and I think I gave 3 of the books 2 stars and 2 of them 3 stars, and I was not impressed. I felt incredibly let down by Oprah. I also read Liane Moriarty's books, not all of them, but a bunch of them. They were a little bit hit or miss for me. Some of the stories I couldn't get behind, and I didn't connect with them. But as a whole, I really do enjoy her writing and sort of the story she endeavors to tell. And I feel like if I keep reading her books, I'm going to find one that I absolutely love. I gave a couple of them 4 stars, but most of them were like 3-star reads for me. But she is an author that I plan to keep reading. The third author I wanted to talk about is Lisa Gardner. I have a whole stack of her books on my shelf because in my haul that I posted last week, I picked up one of her books in the free bin at Second and Charles just because I was like, oh, it looks like a pretty generic looking thriller. It might be interesting. I'll probably get rid of it. Read it, loved it, and decided to pick up some more books when I saw them at thrift stores. You know, nothing wrong with spending like $3 on a couple of books that seem okay. Read them, loved them, and I have now read every book that I could find of hers, which is not all of them. She's like a book a year author, so she has a great many books. She writes thrillers, like those sort of generic thrillers. They're not going to make you think, but they're fun, entertaining reads, and I've been loving them so much. I don't enjoy all of them. Her books have been between like 2 and 4-star reads for me, with a couple of 2-star reads, a lot of 3-star reads, and some 4-star reads. This was a 4-star read. Find Her was my favorite of her books. I've read every book of hers I could get my hand on. The library doesn't have all her books. I don't own them. She's an amazing writer. Like, I just love reading these. They're quick, easy, fun thrillers. And if you like that sort of thing, like the kind of trashy thriller, but that's more well written than most trashy thrillers, I'd really recommend her. She's great. Something I've also been doing a little bit of is I've been listening to audiobooks from the library. This is something I've never really done before because audiobooks, my brain doesn't work that way. Again, with nonlinear thinking, my comprehension when listening to audiobooks is so incredibly low. And I always sort of shied away from that because I was like, well, I'm not going to get anything out of it. Like, I can't listen to a book and, like, understand what's going on and absorb the plot the same way I can when I'm reading it. And I tried with a book. I listened to The Girl in the Spider's Web by David Lagerkrantz, which is the 4th of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books, just because I knew I didn't really care about it, but it was something I could give that a shot with. Didn't really enjoy that book, gave it 2 stars, but also couldn't understand it, so I'm hesitant to say too much about that book. But what I did discover is that I can do rereads with audiobooks, like books I've already read that maybe I want to try again, and I can listen to that. So I've been going through that. Like, I've been listening to a few Jodi Picoult books, which you can see on my shelf. I have so many of them. And I also read Room by Emma Donoghue, and I've been really enjoying that. I'm never going to be someone who can sit there and listen to a new audiobook and just, like, love it or connect with the characters or the story. But for rereads, it's really fun for me. So that's my wrap up, guys. I did want to talk about what I'm planning to do with this channel in the near future. I have a bunch of book hauls to film. I have 5 giant boxes of books on my floor that I'm going to be filming in the coming weeks, just because I need to get them off my floor and then I'll update them. I have such a problem with buying books, but I think I finally stopped, sort of. Like, I don't need any more. I don't have room for any more. I don't even have room for these. So there are a bunch of book hauls coming. I also am in the process of reorganizing my bookshelves. Like, some of them look pretty, and I feel like you get sort of the wrong idea of my bookshelves because you see behind me like my Harry Potter shelf and my J.K. Rowling shelf, and I don't know how high this goes, but maybe my Tamora Pierce shelf. And these are the ones that look pretty. There are like 5 over here that are really pretty shelves, and the rest of them are awful. They're just like all messy and like tons of books and nothing's organized. And I really want to do like a full reorganization of all my shelves and get all my books put away and have them all pretty and nice. And I would like to do a bookshelf tour maybe, if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. I have a lot of books and a lot of shelves, so I don't know how I would film that in a way that isn't like 45 minutes long, but if you have any ideas for that, please let me know. And I also have an unhaul coming because I'm trying to get rid of more books and I'm trying to be mature about it. Let me know if there's anything you would like me to do, if there's any content you're looking for from me. I have posted reviews on Goodreads for every book I read over the past 8 months. There's a lot of them. If you'd like me to do a video about any of them, or you'd like me to talk more in depth about any of them, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm not gonna... I talked about the ones that stood out for me, and I'm just not gonna deal with the other ones unless you have a specific interest. Right now, I'm currently on the edge of psychological thrillers, still reading them, still enjoying them, but I'm kind of getting more into memoirs and nonfiction again, because I have a couple of those that I want to read. That's gonna be it for today, guys. Bye!